Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the invocation by Dr. Sean Keels and remain standing for the Enid Police and Fire Color Guard, followed by the national anthem performed by the Enid High School Jazz Choir.
Let's pray together. Father, thank you for the incredible privilege that we have to call upon your name. Thanks for being better to us than we deserve. Even the precipitation, Lord, we thank you for wetting our land. We're grateful for the way that you watch over us and care for us. Thank you for this great city that we call home, those who lead it. God, thank you for the food that we shared today. May it give us the strength we need as we faithfully serve you. I pray that you would be with our mayor today as he shares a vision for this city, and that you would help us to continue to live in a manner that would honor you and be good for the people here of Enid. God, we love you, and most of all, we thank you for loving us. Continue to build harmony within our home, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Detail, halt, left, right, freeze and on.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the 48th Mayor of Enid, David Mason.
Well, welcome to the 2025 City of Enid State of the City Address. It truly is always an honor and a privilege to stand in front of this group and have the opportunity to explain how your city is working for you. So thank you for caring enough about your community to be here today or to be watching online. I was just told backstage that last year we had 148 people at this event. This year we have 349. It's pretty remarkable. If those numbers are correct, and I'm sure they are, this will be the largest number ever to take part in the State of the City Address in Enid. So no pressure, right, on my part. But I did something different this year. Rather than spend a lot of time on statistics, which, by the way, is in your annual report on the table you can look at, I decided that I would to choose a theme. I wanted to choose a theme that I wanted, and hopefully I could convey today. The theme that I decided on was very simple. It's called What's My Part in Our Story? What's my part in our story? But before I begin, there are several people and groups that I'd like to recognize that are in attendance today with us. So first of all, I want to thank the City of Enid Honor Guard, made up of both our Enid Police Department and our Enid Fire Department. Let's give them another round of applause, please. Our national anthem was performed by our very own Enid High School Jazz Choir under the direction of Mr. Matthew Johnson. What a group of very, very talented people. How about a round of applause for them? I also want to thank Dr. Sean Kills. Thank you so much for the prayers for our city and for our leaders. Please don't stop offering up those prayers because we certainly need those. The City of Enid Communication Department. This is a group made up of Dane Tate, Caleb Barber, Larissa Sloan, Elijah Travis, and led by Director of Communications, Derek Solis. That group's sitting right over there. Our communications, that's all right. You can give them a round of applause. Our communication team doesn't just simply produce my bi-monthly TV show or produce videos for today's State of the City address. They are everywhere capturing photographs and producing videos of events happening all over our community. They are also responsible for putting this entire event together today. Sometime back, they were asked to film and produce a video called Huey Helicopter, the workhorse of the Vietnam War, at the request of Elaine Johns and the Veterans Museum. As a result, our communications team was nominated and won, not one, not two, but 3 Telly Awards for a short documentary. If you want to watch this video following our presentation today, the QR code that you see up on the screen is also down on a sheet of paper right down here by the trophies, so you can scan that. But what I want you to know is that's the caliber of employee that you have working at the City of Enid. So once again, one more round of applause for that team. I also want to thank our partners from Vance Air Force Base. Wing Commander of the 71st Flying Training Wing, Colonel Charles Throckmorton IV, and his wife Brooke. Thank you so much for being here and everything that you do. Command Chief Harvey McReynolds and his wife, Master Sergeant Christine McReynolds. And I didn't see Miller. Is he here or no? No? Okay. Well, I'm not going to mention him then. But commander of the medical group also is Colonel DeLamba. They have 2 tables this year, so let's give them a huge round of applause for being here. I want to thank our city commissioners. Thank you for your dedication to our city, your willingness to study issues and to make informed and sometimes difficult decisions. In the audience today, we have Ward 1 Commissioner Cheryl Patterson. We have Ward 2 Commissioner Derwin Norwood. Ward 3 Commissioner Frank Baker, sitting over here. Ward 4 Commissioner Whitney Roberts. And Ward 5 Commissioner Rob Stallings. We also have with us today several former mayors. First of all, we have Mr. Norman Gray, who was the 40th mayor in Enid, and he served from 1991 to 1995. We have Mr. Mike Cooper sitting right down front. He was the 41st mayor of Enid. He served from 1995 to 1999. And Mike is also currently the executive director of our Vance Development Authority. Mr. Doug Franz was the 42nd mayor of Enid. He served from 1999 to 2023. And then we have a very special guest sitting at that table also, Mr. Paul Russell. He is a former mayor. He was number 35, the 35th mayor of Enid. He served from 1977 to 1981. And Mr. Russell is 90 years old. 90 years old. So let's give him all a round of applause. I also have a couple former commissioners in the audience today. I've got Mr. Ron Jantz sitting right down here. He was Ward 1 Commissioner, and Mr. Jeff Funk, who served Ward 6. So if we could give them a round of applause. And then several other dignitaries that we also have in the audience today that I'd like to mention. Senator Roland Peterson. Senator, thank you for being here. State Representative Chad Caldwell. I saw Chad a while ago. Peyton Burns, which is the field rep for Senator James Langford. And representing Senator Mark Wayne Mullen is Field Rep Emma Alexander. So let's give them all a round of applause. And then last but certainly not least is my beautiful wife, Melanie, which is sitting right down here. And I have almost all my family here today. I'll start with, I've got my sister, Connie, and her husband, Bill. I've got my brother, Todd, and his guest, Dr. Annie Casey. And then I've got my sons, Grant, Colin, which is backstage, Garrett, and Coulter, and Colin's wife, Madison. So did I miss anyone, Melanie, on the family? Okay. All right, very good. So anyway, that's all the introductions. I just always want to thank my family for letting me take the amount of hours that it does to be mayor. So thank them very much. I do appreciate it. So with all that said, let's get started. My theme, what's my part in our story? In order to answer that question, I think you first have to break that sentence down and ask yourself, who is the my in that question, and what's our story? Back in August, I was sitting in my office thinking about what I wanted to say at this year's State of the City address. I had a legal pad in front of me, and I was just writing down everything I could think of. One thought I wrote down was, we are all in this together. But then I started thinking, how can I say that better? The very next statement that I wrote down was, what's my part in our story? And there it was. It asked a question that I wanted an answer to. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it was a multifaceted, multi-level question that doesn't have just one answer, but has multiple answers. Let's start with the last part of that statement first, though, our story, our story. How can we all have the same story? Because we are all so different and so unique. And in our country, we take a lot of pride in that, don't we, being different? You know, I'm different from each of the 6 commissioners that I have the pleasure of serving with. I was blessed with these amazing good looks, while Commissioner Norwood, he's got a great personality, a great personality. We all see many things differently because we are each looking at those issues through the lens of our past experiences. Many of you have heard me talk about my dad in the past. He was a man that I loved and respected greatly, and he was a man with great integrity. But at times I clashed with my dad, and sometimes fervently. For those of you who didn't know my dad, he was a junior high school principal who had to moonlight each Saturday and every summer doing roofing and carpentry jobs in Altus, Oklahoma to support a family of 5. For many years, I could never understand why my dad's personality could be so rigid, so matter-of-fact on every topic, so right or wrong with absolutely no room in the middle. It wasn't until many, many years later, after I was grown, he told me how his dad, my granddad, had been an alcoholic and had been very abusive to him and my grandmother. Despite how hard my grandmother worked as a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse, my granddad would disappear for days on end, only to show back up hungover or broke, and usually both. My dad shared a story of how they even had to move from the family farm that they owned because my granddad had literally lost the farm in a poker game. Throughout my dad's entire life, he never touched a drop of alcohol. He never gambled and was never, ever abusive to my sister, my brother, myself, and certainly not my mother. I truly believe my dad became very rigid and matter-of-fact, not because he was a difficult man, but because he was probably horrified that he would become like his dad. You see, he was viewing his life and the choices that he made through the lens of his past experiences. Now, I share that story with you only because I believe that if we went around this room today, each and every one of us could tell a story that probably defines why you see issues the way you do. You see, past experiences serve different purposes. They can remind us of situations we do not ever want to find ourselves in again. But if we're not careful, they can also turn us into a person that is trapped in the past, fearful of the unknown, and making us reluctant to change. And yes, while we are each very unique and very different and have our own past experiences, I remind you, we also share a story together. We are all in the story we call Enid. We are all part of this story because we attend church together, we shop at the same stores together, and we all drive down the same streets together. And yes, while we are each very unique, I believe that we all want basically the same thing in our shared story. A place where we can safely raise our children and our grandchildren. A place where we can work hard and have the opportunity to better ourselves and our family. A story where all 53,000 of us can be very different and very unique, but are also proud to be part of the story of Enid. Initially, whenever I wrote the question, what's my part in our story? The my part of that question was me. I was thinking about me. But the more I thought about the question, I realized my doesn't apply to just myself. It applies to every individual and every group in this community. So the first analogy I want you to consider today, when you think of what's my part, is this. What is the city of Enid's part in our story? The city of Enid's part in our story. One of the main parts of your city government is to make sure that you have infrastructure. Can you imagine not having the basic necessities like sewer, trash disposal, or trash pickup? Can you imagine the amount of chaos without a police department or a fire department? What if you went to your faucet needing a drink of cold water and there was none? And I'm not talking about a repair and the water line in your neighborhood happens to be cut off temporarily. I'm talking about not having access to clean drinking water. I stood here last year and I told you that by the end of 2024 that we would have the Kaw Lake Water Project completed. That all 70 miles of the pipe would be installed, the treatment plant would be completed, and we'd be moving almost 11 million gallons of water per day through that system. Combined with our existing water production, that we would be providing almost 32 million gallons of water every single day. Well, as you can see, that date came and went basically because of rocks. Rocks. I told you then that almost all 70 miles of pipe was dug, welded, and buried, which that is a very true statement. However, it was still necessary for the water line to be bored under the Arkansas River and one additional location under the Bodark River. I'll remind you, this isn't your usual run-of-the-mill boring like you see under a city street. This is a hole large enough for a pipe 32 inches in diameter to be pulled. Each piece of that pipe is 40 foot long and welded end to end so that it makes up one continuous pipe that's almost a mile long. All pipe to be installed under a riverbed or a large body of water is coated with a special material called Powercrete J that looks almost like concrete, but it gives it additional protection and lastability because we do not want a leak in a water pipe under a river, right? I'll also remind you this hole that we're talking about, this bore, is 60 feet below the riverbed. Once boring is complete, they tie on to the nearly mile-long string of pipe and begin to pull it through the hole and up the other side. There's nothing to it, right? They ought to be able to do it in no time. Well, there's nothing to it unless you hang up on a rock. And it fractures a portion of the protective coating on the outside of the pipe that we, the city, paid $1 million extra to have on any of the pipe that's buried underneath a large body of water. All that pipe had to be removed and reordered. At that point, the contractor requested additional time to complete their project, of which we did grant that extension. And I'm happy to tell you today that the section under the Arkansas River has been successfully bored, pulled, and installed. The Call Lake Water Project should be complete later this year in 2025. You know, a fun fact I encourage you to think about when you hear us talk about the Call Water Project, or you hear someone say, what's the big deal? It's just a water line. Well, it's a little more than just a water line. I went back and I looked over the past 10 budget years, and we normally spend on an average about $12 million per year on capital improvements. Some years a little more, some years a little less. That includes all the drainage projects, all the road projects to help eliminate existing potholes, all the bridge projects, and all the other infrastructure projects that you can think of. Our engineering team usually has between 100 and 150 projects they are working on every single year. So to understand the scope and the magnitude of the Call Water Project, think of it this way. The Call Water Project will cost roughly $342 million. If you divide that amount by $12 million that we spend every single year on capital improvements, it would take 28 years to develop and complete enough projects to equal the cost of the Call Water Project. Almost 3 decades of projects that Enid is doing in 2.5 years. Let that sink in for just a second. It's a huge project. Another part of the City of Enid's responsibility is to grow our economic base. Why is this so important, and why do I always mention this topic? Well, it's because it's very simple math. If our city is going to have funds to provide clean, abundant water to your faucets, trash removal at your curb, police and fire service at your fingertip, and yes, spend over $12 million each year on capital improvements, it takes money, and a lot of it. One group that has answered that call of what's my part in our story is our Enid Regional Development Alliance, or we call them ERDA. This is a small army of 3 individuals that truly believe that they can do and accomplish anything. Director of Operations, Debbie Moore. Director of Marketing, Meredith Wright. And Executive Director, Dr. Marcy Mack. Let's give them a big round of applause. There is a reason I place my remarks about ERDA immediately following my remarks about the Call Water Project. It's because of the positive impact our water project is having on our ability to recruit manufacturing businesses. You know, when we started the Call Water Project, we fully understood how near capacity we were regarding the amount of water that we could produce versus what our consumption was. But what we did not realize was how many other communities were in the exact same situation. Many other communities, especially in western Oklahoma, did not and still do not have the extra water capacity to recruit businesses to their area. We are finding out now that many of those companies who have a need for large amounts of water and have been burdened with unfair regulations are searching for business-friendly communities like Enid, Oklahoma to relocate to. As usual, Enid was ahead of the curve. We knew we could not grow if we did not solve our water issue. So we put our money where our problem was, and while other communities have not done that. Already, even before the water project is complete, manufacturing businesses are calling our ERDA team looking for locations. And because our community is much more desirable now because of the additional water supply, it allows us to be more selective and much more in control of what we feel our community needs and what we can sustain. I want you to think about this. A company that uses 1 million gallons of water per day will generate about $3 million per year of gross revenue for the city of Enid. So you say, well, Mayor, that's a lot of water. Is that even realistic? Well, I'll remind you that Koch Industries uses between 3 and 6 million gallons of water per day now. So yes, most manufacturing businesses use a lot of water. That does not even include the revenue generated from trash or water or sewer fees. That does not include the water, sewer, and trash fees from the homes that each of those employees will purchase. And that does not include the sales tax revenue each time those employees purchase gasoline, buy groceries, or eat at one of our restaurants. So yes, I believe our Call Water project and the ERDA definitely go hand in hand. But that's not all that our ERDA team is working on. Having a movie theater in Enid is crucial. And I want each of you to know, I hear you loud and clear. Even though a previous theater project did not come to fruition, I want you to know we have not and we will not stop working to make it happen. There are individuals in Enid who are diligently working as we speak to bring a theater to Enid. And I am confident that in 2025, a movie theater will be solidified. Moving on, did you know that for the first time in Oklahoma history, the ag and industry has been replaced as the number 2 revenue generating industry in Oklahoma? The oil and gas industry still holds the number 1 spot, but now the number 2 spot is held by aerospace and aeronautical technology, of which that industry is currently contributing $44 billion, billion with a B, every year to Oklahoma's economy, as well as currently employs over 200,000 people in Oklahoma, in the Oklahoma workforce. It is believed that at the current rate that aerospace and aeronautical technology is growing, compared to the rate of oil and gas exploration slowing, within the next 5 years that the aerospace industry will most likely take over as the number 1 revenue generator in the state of Oklahoma. At a recent conference that I attended, the executive director of the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics used 2 examples out of 108 airports in Oklahoma to emphasize airports who are building, growing, and doing everything right. One was Will Rogers International Airport in Oklahoma City. The other was Wood Ring Regional Airport right here in Enid, Oklahoma. Once again, Enid was ahead of the curve by partnering with Vance Air Force Base to become a joint use facility, to include the expansion of the aprons, the taxiways, the new hangars for both the Air Force and for private aviation. With all the work and literally millions of dollars invested in Wood Ring Regional Airport, we believe not only have we strengthened our partnership with Vance, but we feel that we have positioned ourselves to take full advantage of the possibility to expand our private aviation industry opportunities. Now, I want to stop right here for just a second on what I call a point of clarification. I received an email about a month ago that asked the question, why we continue to pour our citizens' money into an airport that is just sucking up all of our sales tax dollars. Well, aside from all the reasons that I just mentioned, I want you to know that almost all the dollars used in those projects at Woodring are from the Oklahoma Strategic Planning Commission, the Oklahoma Department of Commerce, the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, and the Department of Defense. On most projects, the city of Enid contributes 5%. 5%. One additional point I'll mention regarding Woodring Airport, the city of Enid owns our own FBO, fuel sales distribution. Last year we sold almost 600,000 gallons of jet fuel. We are one of the only airports in Oklahoma that is not, let me repeat that, is not subsidized by their community. So Woodring Airport provides our ERDA another huge opportunity to search out and recruit aerospace industry to Enid. Another remark I want to make regarding our ERDA team is the new Airco facility that just recently opened here in Enid, located at the corner of 4th and Willow. Dr. Mack and her team worked an incredible amount of hours to help secure this business. Airco is based out of Noonan, Georgia, with operations in Georgia, Ohio, and now Enid, Oklahoma. You know, sometimes tragic events happen in our history, and then years later, the results of that event can have a positive effect on a community, and in this case, our community. September 11th, 2001, almost 25 years ago. We all either remember what happened that day, so specifically at the World Trade Centers, or have seen pictures of that horrible event when 2 large commercial aircraft were flown into those towers. Those buildings didn't collapse because of the planes that crashed into them. It was the jet fuel from those 2 planes that caused the fire to become so hot, causing the steel to lose its strength and become unable to hold the weight above the crash site, resulting in both buildings collapsing on themselves. That event caused a lot of cities with high-rise buildings or very large buildings to revisit their building code requirements. Airco is one of those businesses that has pioneered a process of fireproofing, painting, and powder coating structural steel fabrications that will provide more resistance to heat, in turn providing more time for people to evacuate before failure of those structural components can happen. Airco currently has 400 employees and will employ about 80 individuals right here in Enid. So Dr. Mack and the entire ERDA team, another good job and another great win for Enid. Another way that the city of Enid is working for you is through the continued development of sports tourism revenue. And if you were here last year, you heard me mention our intention to build a new state-of-the-art youth sports complex, of which I'll talk more about in detail shortly. But I want everyone to fully understand that we have already been diligently working towards growing our sports tourism revenue for the last 25 years. This is not a new concept for Enid. We celebrated the 25th anniversary of David Allen Memorial Ballpark this past November. In my opinion, even after 25 years of use, it is still one of the premier ballparks in the United States and had 287 ball games played there last year. Partly because of these remarkable facilities, along with the hard work of so many volunteers, it has allowed Enid to host the National Junior College Division II World Series for the last 15 years and has extended our contract now through 2028. So what does that mean for you? Well, last year during that 10-day tournament period, over 4,000 people attended those games. 1,938 room nights were spent in our hotels, accounting for over $948,000 of direct sales spent here in Enid and an additional $450,000 spent on indirect sales. That's almost $45,000 in local sales tax. and over $33,000 in hotel motel taxes that stay right here in our community. While the new advanced soccer complex is now complete, it is still early on in the management and the efficiency of running the new complex. However, I want to call your attention to just one of the multiple tournaments hosted at the soccer complex last year. It had 54 teams. One team was from as far away as Santa Fe, New Mexico. The others were from all over the state of Oklahoma. This one tournament in April generated $1.2 million of economic impact to our community, including 1,837 hotel room stays. But the impact of the new soccer complex continues to grow in 2025. Several months ago, we were very happy to announce that because of the investment made by the new soccer complex and by the Allen family, as well as others here in town, and the city of Enid, coupled with the hard work of so many people and the reputation our community has built hosting the Junior College Division II World Series, we have now been selected to host the 2025 Women's Division I National Soccer Tournament, meaning that teams from all over the United States will travel to our community, staying in our hotels, eating in our restaurants, and purchasing merchandise at our retailers. Are you starting to see how sports tourism is big business that generates millions and millions of dollars for our community from outside of our community? Last year, whenever I announced our plans to build a new state-of-the-art youth sports complex, a complex that would initially accommodate girls softball, youth baseball, and youth football. Following my announcement that year, the Enid News and Eagle ran an online survey asking the general public how they felt about the possibility of a new youth sports complex. The poll was overwhelmingly positive. Most people understood that even if they no longer had children or grandchildren at home, the new youth sports complex will have real economic value to Enid. The past 12 months, we have spent a lot of time trying to locate a space large enough to accommodate everything that we needed, but also allowed additional room for future growth. It had to be a parcel of land that was reasonably priced, something that we could afford. Well, the Allen family stepped up yet again and agreed to donate the 54 acres on the west side of the advanced soccer complex. At this location, we already have utility infrastructures built up to the soccer complex. This location also allows us to share some of the maintenance facilities at the soccer complex rather than building duplicate maintenance facilities. It also is near our hotels, near our shopping, and near many of our restaurants. So please help me give the entire Allen family a huge round of applause. We have just selected a company by the name of HALF, H-A-L-F-F, Design Group, to provide all the civil engineering and the design work for this project. HALF was selected from 14 submissions from across the nation and will begin work immediately. They were selected because of their extensive experience in multi-sport complexes. Now, I want to stop right here for another point of clarification. So going back to the online survey, where a very, very small group made comments like, Enid will never build this complex, or we've tried this before and it didn't work, I bring two words for you today. Buckle up. Buckle up, because we are going to build this complex. All right, I want to get back to my question. Thank you. So what's my part in our story? This time I want you to think about my part as me, the mayor and the 6 commissioners. What is the most important part of our job that you elected us to do? You know, one of my favorite things that I get to do is read to the elementary students. They are always so happy whenever I show up, and you know, they never, ever ask about potholes. But reading to students really isn't what you elected me to do. I believe with all my heart that you elected me and these 6 commissioners to create a vision for Enid, to create a direction for where we are heading. I believe most everyone in this room today understands that communities cannot be static. If we are not growing, we are shrinking, because the population is always moving, getting older, and businesses close for various reasons. It is imperative that we are always backfilling our community. I tell every commissioner, you can't focus on today, because today is already here and gone. Your job as a commissioner is to think about tomorrow, think about next year, and think about 10 years from now. You know, normally you'd be going to the polls next week to select 3 commissioners. This time you decided that the candidates that filed in Ward 3, Ward 4, and Ward 6, Frank Baker, incumbent Whitney Roberts, and Courtney Dennis, respectively, were candidates with integrity and will be commissioners that always put Enid first. You placed enough trust in them that they did not even draw opponents. I feel that this group of commissioners will not be influenced by the naysayers or by individuals and groups who do not even live in our community and certainly do not have our community's best interest in mind. I believe this team has the characteristics, the determination, and the foresight to continue to move our community forward. I feel very strongly that you have selected 6 commissioners and myself not to conduct business as usual, and certainly not to succumb to the fears of the past, but to be bold and to think about what is possible and what can be accomplished when we all work towards a common cause. Many times we are not only judged by what we do, but also by what we don't do. I believe history harshly judges each of us when we are provided opportunity but choose not to embrace that opportunity. One opportunity that will be headed our way, hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months, is how we fund our municipalities in Oklahoma moving forward. Do you realize Oklahoma is the last state in the union that still uses the archaic funding system of projecting sales tax revenue a year in advance to run our municipalities, coupled with whatever services that we can provide? 49 other states have said there is a better way, a more stable way, a smarter way to fund municipalities, but not in Oklahoma. I talk to mayors from across the state of Oklahoma all the time. Deteriorating roads in municipalities is not unique to Enid. It's an epidemic problem of all 521 Oklahoma communities are challenged with, because we have to guess how much sales tax revenue we hopefully will receive. And if you're in a community that is shrinking and going backwards on sales tax revenue, it becomes more and more difficult each year. Just go look around rural Oklahoma. So many of our communities and our schools are shrinking because there's less and less sales tax revenue. And this usually results in a downward spiral from which they cannot ever recover. So what's the solution, right? What's the solution? Our partner, OML, Oklahoma Municipal League, is working on legislation that will allow municipalities to share in the ad valorem tax that is collected on property inside of the municipalities. Currently, the county and the state governments collect and divide all the property taxes among themselves. Even the property taxes on the property inside of the municipalities. So when you call and you say, I pay my house tax and I want my road fixed, please know the city gets $0 of your property tax. Zero. Currently, of all the sales tax collected in Enid, Oklahoma, which is 9.1%, the city only receives 4.25%. The remainder goes, you guessed it, to the county and the state government. Let that sink in. Of the 4.25% in Enid, 1% of that is earmarked for the Call Water Project, and 0.25% is earmarked for public safety. So our city is basically operating on 3% of sales tax and fees for services. It is my hope that when OML is ready to move forward with this legislation, allowing municipalities to share in a portion of the ad valorem tax inside of our own boundaries, there will be legislators bold enough to stand up and champion this piece of legislation. Thank you. Legislators who can understand that 49 other states have figured this out. Surely we can as well. Otherwise, our cities are only a couple of bad economic years away from being able to sustain themselves. As this issue moves forward, you can be assured I will keep you updated. So now, let's get even more personal. What's my part in our story? But this time, let's make my part be you. All right? So if you look at your tables, you're going to see some little buttons that say, what's my part? Now, I don't expect to see 300 people wearing these buttons around town, but I do hope that they serve as a reminder that we all have a part to do. So then I'll ask, what's your part in our story? Have you ever paused for just a moment and thought about what you want the community that you call home to be? Have you ever thought about what you want your community to look like, or what you want your community to stand for? You know, we spend time thinking about everything else. We think about the ball game next week or coming week. We think about projects at work. We think about the upcoming weekend, and on and on and on it goes. But do you actually ever take any time to think about what you want your community to be? So then, how are you getting involved? Now, you may say, wait a minute, Mater. That's what we elected you and those commissioners to do. That's yours. And to a point, that's true. That's a fair statement. But mayors and commissioners don't make great communities. The people in a community working together for a common purpose are what make a community great. So I'll ask you again, how are you getting involved in your community? I hear people say all the time now, I have a job and a tough boss, and I don't have time to help. Or I hear this one a lot. I have a family. Do you have any idea how much time it takes to raise a family? Well, my wife and I raised 5 boys, so yes, I do fully understand that statement. I know we are all busy, and not everyone can dedicate the time it takes to be a commissioner or a mayor. But the takeaway I want you to think about is you are involved. Whether you want to be or not, just by being part of our shared community, you're involved. So then I'll ask the question this way. Are you actively involved or passively involved? Because any one of these involvements is okay, but you are definitely one or the other. If you can't dedicate 5 hours a month to your church or organization, can you give 1 hour? Can you help Main Street Enid by just showing up for a First Friday event instead of complaining that the streets are blocked off? Can you tell someone, maybe a coworker or an city employee, thank you? Or better yet, write them a note. Tell them thank you for what they did right. Can you pick up that piece of trash that's blowing across the park rather than complaining about the parks department? Or better yet, can you organize a group to spend 2 hours on a Saturday to go out and pick up trash in our park like several other groups have been doing? When our PACE committee commissions a mural in our community on a blank cinder block wall, can you see the beauty rather than asking why we didn't fix a pothole with that money? Can you just try to see the positive rather than always seeing the negative? You may very well be at a place in your life where you can't spend any extra time outside of work or family, but it takes no additional time to see the good in what we're trying to do. Enid is our shared story. We are all in this together. All 53,000 of us are involved, and each of us has a part in this story. So the question is again, what's your part in our story? Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. This timeless quote from Helen Keller reminds us of the profound impact that collective action can have in shaping our communities for the better. A thriving community is not built by a few, but by the efforts of many. Each person contributing their unique talents, perspectives, and care. When we come together, barriers are broken down, and our differences can become our strengths. Every voice matters, and every action, no matter how small, creates a ripple effect that inspires others to act. By stepping up and engaging in community efforts, we not only create tangible improvements like safer streets, better schools, and shared opportunities, but we also cultivate a sense of belonging and purpose that enriches our lives. Getting involved means acknowledging that we are all connected. What affects one of us ultimately affects us all. It is through shared responsibility that we tackle challenges and find solutions that are equitable and sustainable. Whether it's volunteering, supporting a local business, or simply offering a helping hand to a neighbor, our contributions knit the fabric of a community that we can all be proud to call home. In the end, the strength of a community lies in its people. By choosing to participate, we not only improve the world around us, but also leave a legacy of compassion and cooperation for future generations. Together, we can truly do so much. So I'll ask just one last time, what's your part going to be? Thank you.
Thank you for attending the 2025 State of the City Address. Now, go do your part.